Together, we will vanquish the virus, and America will rise from this crisis to new and even greater heights. As our brave warriors have shown us from the nation's earliest days, in America, we are the captains of our own fate. No obstacle, no challenge, and no threat is a match for the sheer determination of the American people. This towering spirit permeates every inch of the hallowed soil beneath our feet.
Let's bring in Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary. That was the president. Kayleigh, good to see you this morning. That was the president yesterday, remembering our fallen heroes. Why was that message so important?
It is incredibly important. There are so many great American service men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice, who laid down their life for this country. And this president honored those men and women yesterday. Now we're fighting a different kind of war, a war with the invisible enemy. And once again, American servicemen and women have rose to the occasion on the comfort and the mercy in deploying and fighting this virus head on. This is an amazing country, and we owe it all to the men and women who gave their lives for the values that we hold dear.
You know, one thing about the pandemic, Kayleigh, is the fact that, the president essentially turned over to each state the reopening to the governors, and certain states are slower than others. You look at Nevada, where they are currently, when it comes to church gatherings and houses of worship, you can have no more than 10 people gather at any one place. Now, the Department of Justice is urging them to reconsider that. And in fact, there's a letter that went out to the governor from the U.S. Attorney for the District of Nevada that reads, "We are concerned, however, that the flat prohibition against 10 or more persons gathering in-person worship services, regardless of whether they maintain social distancing guidelines, impermissibly treats religious and non-religious organizations unequally." Has the White House heard from faith leaders about this push to reopen churches?
Yes, and the faith leaders want to reopen their churches. As the DOJ said in another statement of interest, there's no pandemic exception to the Constitution and to the Bill of Rights. You know, I went to church on Sunday. I was happy that for the first time a church that was nearby to me reopened. I went to Mass. Everyone was socially distanced. Everyone was disinfecting. The priest hand sanitized before he handed out communion. It was the exemplary way I think a church or a mosque or a synagogue can reopen. So this can be done safely. But when you have states like Virginia that was penalizing 16 people for gathering in a 200-person church, these were sex addicts and drug addicts who depended on going to their church every Sunday, and they're penalized while there are large gatherings in the Lowe's parking lot, in the Home Depot parking lot. It's unfair. It's an unduly burden on religion and the free expression of worship that's embedded in our First Amendment. And just to note, in Mississippi, another example where people were fined for attending church in their cars, this is remarkable. This is not the American way.
So, Kayleigh, on Friday, I think it was, you gave your press conference. You said, hey, I'm going to run down a list of questions that you guys just don't even ask me. And then you ran through them and you left. And I think a lot of people were stunned by that. A lot of people applauded it. But the one thing you did say is make a comment that people, some of you don't care whether these churches open or not. And some of the press got insulted. In fact, Chris Wallace said on Sunday, quote, "Let me just say, Sam Donaldson and me in the Reagan White House, we were pretty tough on White House press secretaries. We never had our religious beliefs questioned or lectured to what we ask. I would have been pretty tough if I was there and heard that." Will you question the religious belief of the press?
No, I never question the religious beliefs of the press. Many of our journalists are great men and women of faith and differing faiths, whether it be the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, the Muslim faith. What I was saying was I was asked 11 questions as to why churches would be allowed to reopen. It was a bit peculiar to be asked these 11 questions in a row and for the onus and the focus solely to be on why churches are essential. I've never been asked why a liquor store was essential, so I was merely pointing that out. And to the point about questioning the journalists and asking why they're not asking certain questions, I field hundreds of questions a day. Journalists are not above being questioned themselves. Journalism is a great and noble profession, but there's been a dearth of journalists asking the real questions for President Obama, the criminal leak of Michael Flynn's identity, who leaked that identity, the dossier, which was used to launch a 3-year investigation into this president and spy on his campaign. Why aren't those questions being asked? It's journalistic malpractice not to ask those questions, and I can count on one hand the journalists who are like Maria Bartiromo and Catherine Herridge. But where is the lack of curiosity from the current press corps? There's an extreme lack of curiosity at play.
Okay, so in North Carolina, the president said he was thinking about moving the convention to Florida, possibly Texas, possibly Georgia. The governor of North Carolina, we were waiting on him to respond, and he says he's not giving an immediate answer as to whether or not we will have full capacity, full attendance there. Right now, they're in phase 2. That means only 10 people can gather together. Clearly, they're going to be a lot more than that at the convention. So what's the latest on that? If the president, if you guys have signed a contract, the RNC has signed a contract with the state of North Carolina and already given their word and their commitment, can you get out of those contracts?
Yeah, I would leave that to the RNC and the campaign as to the direct state of play for the convention. But the president was very clear in his tweets. He wants to see this convention happen, and he wants a guarantee that, in fact, it will from the state of North Carolina. And this president's done so much good for the American people. I've seen it firsthand and had the honor every day of watching him work hard to get America through this. And he wants the convention to be an opportunity to share the good news with the American people.
So, Kayleigh, is the president trying to force the governor of North Carolina's hand in reopening more of the state, or is he floating the trial balloon? Maybe it's going to be more virtual than in person.
Yeah, the president wants to ensure that politics is not at play in determining how and when the convention can work. He wants to make sure a Democrat governor is not putting in place extraneous restrictions that would prohibit him from having the convention and holding it and sharing, as I said, the good news of America reopening and America overcoming what was a devastating pandemic.
Kayleigh, the other thing would be devastating for North Carolina in particular. The hotels, the restaurants, the transportation. Hertz, the latest major travel-oriented company to declare bankruptcy. How much pain does the North Carolina governor want to put their businesses through?
And that's just it. You hit the nail on the head, Brian. Dr. Fauci said we can't cause irreparable harm by permanently closing this country. There are real consequences. There are cancer diagnoses that are missed. There are people who are falling into depression and suicide. There are consequences to keeping this country closed. So that's why we encourage every governor, from the governor of North Carolina and many others to the governor of Illinois, to make data-driven decisions, smart decisions. But as the president has always said, don't let the cure be worse than the problem.
Yeah, I know it would be nice for everyone to go and check out the Carolinas and see and, have that opportunity to go to Charlotte, because it is such a beautiful city. Thank you so much, Kayleigh. Great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
You're welcome.